or not. Okay. We are recording now. Greetings. It's February 14th, 2017. This is the Divvy Community meeting. We have Kendall and Gary with us this morning. And I've updated the meeting template to include the up-to-date links on our chain, Divvy, and the CoCloud Rocket Chat. I don't think I added an agenda item for it, but we're moving from Slack to our Rocket Chat instance on sandstorm.io, and there's a number of issues in there. CoCloud is we're investigating Sandstorm with CoCloud. A number of issues there. I won't go into them in this meeting. I mentioned we have Gary here. Gary is a potential manager for Divvy. We're still, looking to define a role there and see if they can come on board. Okay, I did not review the action items from last week. We have not much activity on Consider It, so we'll skip past there. We also have the weekend boards now on Sandstorm where people propose tasks. It's another or projects. Now, I guess it's a question of taking those and putting them on Divvy and maybe doing a we're going to do a CoCloud Consider It. Enter weekend. Okay. Second report is CoCloud, and they're firming up the operating agreement, simple operating agreement to start with, the activity started out on Lumio exclusively, and they're moving to Rocket Chat, but there's reservations about that, and I'm recommending that I'm evaluating moving.eu, which is a fully decentralized social networking environment that would be ideal for Divvy, Archain, and CoCloud. And the idea would be to ultimately deploy that on its own and perhaps make it a Sandstorm app integrating with the single sign-on system of Sandstorm for all the apps using the Jabber ID that's used by moving standard XMPP, which is on our Divvy roadmap anyway. Jet Stereo project is what that was associated with. Sandstorm has released all their commercial stuff into the public domain and basically gone out of the business of serving enterprises, which is good and bad news as far as the community is concerned. Gives us access to all their scaling code so that we can scale Sandstorm, which is one of the major limitations it has, is we can't scale it easily except by using it to install decentralized applications. The cloud community process, I won't go into it here, but essentially I was advocating a decentralized process for the distribution of coins and such, and assignment of projects and a team structure following collective intelligence best practices for decisions and collective action. So this is really a refinement of the Divvy process, and we want to look into this for them. And welcome, Bob O'Brien.
Good morning, everybody.
Just going over the decentralized community process that I was asked to write up for CoCloud, because I was advocating a Divvy type process, and here I've refined it a little bit. I think we can bring some of this back into Divvy. One thing I did was I changed the I took a little step ahead in terms of the approval process, going from the minting wallet, and I have these cool little things where you can abstain by default, or you can approve, or you can block any thing from the primary mining wallet. And the process involves allocating a budget to the core team for monthly expenses, as well as other projects that coins could be minted for. In this case, $25,000 for a month is what we're allocating. And then the core team has a sheet where they pay out, they receive the coin, and then they pay it out to people on the team or for other services, independently or autonomously. And every team works this way. And then when they pay someone, okay, now technically I can't approve my own, or I guess I could. I guess these are a little too narrow. Do that happen on the other sheet too? Yeah, I don't know why that happened. Somebody do that. Sorry about that. I just want to straighten that out a little bit so that people can see it. And then when you pay, then you have individual sheets, and you link to the sheets. So the minting sheet leads to the core team sheet, where there's the corresponding entry, And then the core team sheet links to the Jim Scarver sheet, which has a corresponding entry there for the other entry. So this cleans up the distribution process a lot with the Ethereum transaction IDs once these transactions are posted to Ethereum, which this ID should match this ID. And we can write JavaScript or Google script code to automate this process to some extent, or coordinate it with Ethereum at some point as a step in automating the whole process. Oops. Anything on that? Sorry.
So Jim, what you just showed us, is this an evolution of a reward distribution methodology / matrix that we would likely adopt in Divvy?
Yeah, it is the same process as Divvy, more or less, but it's just improved.
Okay.
It's the same distribution process we've had all along, but we didn't have strict double entry. You know, it wasn't clear how. You know, we didn't, and we didn't have the middle step of allocating, of minting from the core team expenditures. Now that step makes it a lot cleaner and more understandable what's happening.
Right.
Okay, we see the major projects allocations on the minting sheet. That's where we create the coin. And then the expenditures are all in other teams. And it follows the decentralized community process guidelines, which we have to set up for Divvy.
So in the projects that have Divvy tokens that have been allocated to them, do you see those those task reward spreadsheets being repurposed along these lines?
Yeah, just I guess updated, changed. I think the approval mechanism is much better here. Okay, if we look at the protections here, we can see that oops, looks like I didn't do it. We can see that you can see the row lights up. So only Jim Whitescarver can update this row. Only Nathan can update this row. Only Tim can update this row. So,
yeah, I don't. Oh, I see.
You see the green?
Yeah, I see that. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think this is a number one priority for Divvy.
Yeah, and we have to catch that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the other question is, has any in those projects, has anyone actually seen rewards go into their wallets?
Oh no, I'm not. I'm just making this proposal. I was asked to give detail, and so as I was copying the Divvy process, I made the improvements.
Right. Okay. And this is
So
this is the resulting work in progress.
right, and on Thursday at the meeting, we're going to discuss this and maybe adopt it.
Okay.
I'm hoping.
All right. Well, good.
And I should put down here in here. Update Divvy sheets. Okay, and I'm not sure. Well, we'll get to. Let's see if we get to that. Let's try to breeze through this. Our chain, we have an experimental sandstorm for them, which presumably they're evaluating. It seems like many of the poor people in our chain aren't evaluating it or aren't participating, so I'm not sure how that's going to turn out. The other thing that we have is the collaborative learning, the new Chain Programming Working Group. And what I'm trying to do here is learn while you earn, building something worthwhile and making a difference together. And this is an idea that got a lot of support in the Divvy Slack. And everyone thinks that's a good idea for perhaps a Divvy focus, which is another agenda item. But
well, I mean, this sounds like a slogan. You know, this is advertising.
yeah. I mean, it's a great model. I mean, it's basically just an apprenticeship model. It's like when we have a bounty for something and we get a class to try to build it, we can pay out some rewards in various.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is a bottom-up organic methodology.
Right, and it follows it's sort of an extension of Doug Rushkoff's notion of program or be programmed.
Right.
Okay, it's like everybody programs. Okay, they program their lives, they program their biocomputer, their brain themselves by their thoughts and actions. We all program, and to program our technology, has largely become a matter of copy and paste. We follow instructions. Okay, we are the computer that follows the instructions. But the idea is to be proactive and program rather than letting the media and everything else program us. In any case, that's an idea that I'm trying to develop and maybe extend it to the ProCoin community and to Divvy. And see what happens. And then, and then we have to figure out where to go to get people, because we sort of want to build trust communities. But for the stuff we're doing here, mostly, so we have to determine which kinds of things can be really open to the public. And then we try to engage the open source community that's doing it. So if we want to fix Sandstorm, for example, or participate in Sandstorm, this is a good ploy to come into the Sandstorm community and get people to help.
Well, I mean, again, going back to learn while you earn, building something worthwhile and making a difference together, That sounds like a means. This is an initiative to onboard non-technical people.
Yeah.
Right?
And so within Sandstorm, we can create things like Doodle. And I create this thing, and we signed up our first meeting with people reporting here. Now I had a meeting for yesterday that nobody signed up for. The idea is if we have 4 people signed up, we have a class. Okay, so this one's defunct.
Well, Jim, where would we have seen about that announcement?
Well, it would have been announced in the class. I mean, I did announce it several times in, Slack and etc. You signed up for the first one, okay? And in the document here, okay, you have explicit instructions to go to the date picker, or maybe it's not explicit enough.
Yes, and I like the idea that this process for the trading classes that you're setting up is to bring non-technical people on board, but more subtly than that, it's to bring people at one level of technical understanding up to a different level, a level that we're all subscribing to on this project, so that they can then be productive. Yes, I like the way it fits into your core values there.
Can you do you want to lead this project? Learn while you earn, building something worthwhile and making a difference.
Do I?
I've got my hand, so many balls in the air, but I think this is important. Well, we'll talk about it later.
Yes, I think it's a worthwhile project, and it's worthwhile to be thinking about. As we go along. I'm not sure what it would mean to actually be the leader of that project, but
I guess
yes,
it would. I guess it would involve, creating and updating the documents about it, and getting other people involved, and arranging future classes. Just participate.
Yeah, I mean, it's another way of growing the community, and one of the issues with all of these types of initiatives is they all tend to originate with high level people. In other words, people with a higher level of technical ability, and the way I see it, any of these initiatives, they need to be able to reach out and attract people who are not of that technical ability, because there's a very large social component to all of these initiatives that you're involved in, Jim. So, I mean, I agree with Gary. You know, and the way I see it, it's an outreach effort, and I could see adapting this over to Divvy as a, you know, as another way of engaging with users.
Yeah, and you know, and it's, a lot of the motivation is a lot of the stuff at CoCloud is we're evaluating different things that users can do themselves, community-based, and there's, you know, a lot of the things we're looking at are sort of bleeding edge, and unless we're involved with the open source communities there to solve our problems. And I mean, yesterday I spent most of the days trying to set up webhooks for Rocket Chat under Sandstorm, and it looks like it's not possible. And that is leading us away from Rocket Chat on Sandstorm now, because without webhooks, we can't do the integrations. But we should work with the Sandstorm community and try to get those webhooks fixed. Okay, it's, you know, it's probably something we can help facilitate through a programming class, you know, one of these programming classes or whatever. And same thing is true if email notifications are not working in Rocket Chat and Sandstorm. And that seems like, you know, it seems like a really doable project by a group of people if, you know, if they're willing to cooperate and learn together and collaboratively build something, make something work. You know, it always helps when you know, I just get frustrated. And I had a guy on from Rocket Chat helping me yesterday, and that was, you know, I learned a lot, and I didn't get it working. I found out it was probably not a Rocket Chat problem at all, but a Sandstorm problem. Now I forgot my point.
Well, you know, I just going back to the idea of learn while you earn, building something worthwhile and making a difference together. The notion that a small group of interested individuals could be mentored by someone of a high technical ability.
Well, here's the way it really works, Kendall. Everybody knows different stuff. Okay, everybody brings something to the table in terms of getting the job done. And certainly, you know, having a mentor like myself who has had so much experience is a good thing, except all the stuff I know is outdated. And, you know, the little that these other people know fills in the gaps to get the stuff done. And yes, you know, we want to get coaches and students in there. And if the thing is, if you only get students in there, besides myself, there's always something we can learn together. We all have to become good users of Git and GitHub. Okay, we can set up stuff in GitHub. You know, we can do parts of the process. There's always something valuable we could accomplish, regardless of the skill level of the people.
Well, yeah, but I mean, the point is that most people just aren't even going to attempt a start. You know, I mean, one of the foundational things that we talked about in when we were forming Divvy was the notion of complexity and how it's reaching a crisis level with a large, you know, probably the majority of the population, and not just, you know, in this country, but all over the world. And so, you know, how do you bring in those people who are technology averse, you know, or maybe they've you know, managed to make technology work for themselves on a, you know, on a simple level, but, you know, to get into this, you know, this fast moving target, you know, which is, I mean, it's not even a target. It's like this fast moving mass of innovation and, you know, this amorphous process. It's just daunting for the average person, and you know, this to me offers a way of doing that. I'm going to spend more time thinking about learn while you earn, building something worthwhile and making a difference together. I think it's great. It goes along with diversity of thought, unity of purpose, and freedom of action. It's very much the same thing.
And that last list, where do you get that from?
What?
The
Diversity of thought, unity of purpose, freedom of action.
yes.
It's part of the Divvy vision statement.
Yeah, it should be on our homepage.
Yep.
We should make an action item somewhere.
Well, I you know, Killian's no longer involved, you know, actively involved with the website. I can't see who's here now. I know somebody came in, but your screen share has everything blotted out.
Well, if you hit those little arrows next to the icons, it'll scroll through who's there. Or you can.
I see Bob's here.
If you hit the participants choice, you'll get the a screen with the participants listed.
Oh, okay. All right. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. You know, it's too bad that Plant Eater's not here. You know, I thought she was going to jump in on that and make some suggestions and updates and so on the website. But yes, you're correct. That needs to be there.
All right. So the last thing on the agenda or the reports, and we covered some of the action items, is Max Force. I know that speaking with Plant Eater, I know she's been working on the language, which there's some misgivings about some of their politically charged material, which we're not sure that Divvy would want to be associated with, and I think they realize that, you know, they really are looking for a
here's the bottom line on anything political, okay? Everything that gets generated in the political space comes from what a viewpoint, and those viewpoints have a tendency to be, you know, widely distributed, okay? But the point is that when people start working on their project, they start from their own viewpoint, okay? So it really, you know, what I have really tried to stress to the Max Force people is that with regard to reaching the largest possible audience, you have to find neutral ground. and you have to present things. You have to create the opportunity to participate in a neutral space. Okay, and I've gotten very, very strong assurance that they see it that way. Okay, so you know, and you also see that my comment in Considerate about, you know, doing that Divvy should take some kind of position on climate change. You know, no, absolutely not. You know, that's not Divvy creating a neutral space.
Yeah. Well, I think you misunderstood the proposal there. The proposal there is to provide a mechanism for individuals to access the climate data that's generally available in the public domain and do their own analysis.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess yeah, that, but with us being the filter, with Divvy being the filter, essentially. I mean,
Not really, you know.
Well, I've done a lot of research on climate change. Okay,
Yeah,
I consider myself an expert at this point. And you can, you know, you can Google all kinds of stuff out there.
Yeah, well, I'm talking about being able to. What we're talking about is being able to analyze raw data, like the pristine data from the USGA, and
I mean, NOAA.
the idea would be to make any data source on climate change that's available on the semantic web, basically, from various different kinds of data sources, available to everybody.
Well, yeah. I mean, you're sort of talking about an objective search engine.
Well,
right?
Yeah, I mean, you know, the tools exist. Okay, they're public domain, and we can access the information. It's just that we have to make it easy for people to do, and that's the main thing that CoCloud is trying to do, and everything else is. This stuff is out there, but it's not easy. We want to make it easy for people.
Okay, well, you're talking about aggregating the sort of the quote best information and data.
I'm not
sources.
saying when we judge the data at all, okay? And the data sources are out there, and they're linked to the semantic web mostly. You know, we can link more of them, but we're just creating a catalog of what data is available. The tools to search it and to analyze it exist. Okay, we're just making them available and easy for people so that people to enable individuals to use the data.
Yeah, well, no, I agree with that. Although that's what MaxForce is trying to do. You know, they want that. That's what they're trying to do, and that would probably be one of their, you know, their geotop issues, right?
Yeah, well, the reason that I was in favor of the project is because whether you're using the semantic web to analyze identity information, or whether you're using it to analyze climate information, or business information, or any kind of information, okay, you need the same tool. You need the exact same thing to do to analyze any of this public information. And, you know, so that, you know, if you solve one issue there and you let people make a collection of ontologies, and, you know, which is, you know, have been part of many proven secure programs, was crowdsourcing ontologies for security and privacy. Okay, and the climate data is the exact same tools that you develop for climate change work fine for collecting security or other information.
Sure. Okay, let me read what it says in Consider It here, okay? So you understand what I was reacting against, okay? It
Right.
says, should Divvy arrive at the independent analysis of raw data on climate change, independent analysis, okay? All right. In other words,
I
us
understand.
arriving at an independent analysis of the raw data on climate change and seek a sponsor for the purpose of arriving at the truth, the purpose of arriving at the truth. Okay. No, I'm sorry. That's not what Divvy is about. What Divvy is about, what you were talking about, which is providing the tools to enable others to arrive at some sort of an understanding so that they can have a rational discussion about it. Because that's not what we have today.
Right.
We have no rational discussion. You have an orthodox, slam the ball over the net approach on one side that says, oh, the science is settled, end of discussion, shut up. Okay, that's the debate that's going on climate change today.
Yeah, there is no debate. Right?
No, there isn't any debate.
Oops. So
anyhow, I'm that proposal to me, I don't support it. But
yeah,
and as far as
I guess I would. If you read my pro, I sort of stipulated my view on what it was.
Yeah. 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 So anyhow, we don't need to get sidetracked on that. It's, it just comes back to the whole thing about, max force and ideology and so forth. You're never, ever, ever going to get away from ideology. What needs to happen is to have a safe discussion space. Okay? And that's something that Divvy can play a very positive role in, okay, is creating the safe discussion space and give everyone, the widest number of people, the greatest number of tools to access the largest number and greatest number of opinions and evaluate based on their ability to access real data and information. Okay, it's the only way that we're ever going to pull the extremes back towards some sort of a rational midpoint.
Yeah, I was hopeful when Obama took office, and I liked the concept of change.org until I used it for about a month, and it was absolutely horrible because it was coming from a social democrat perspective. Everything on there and all the people, it seemed, were far more to the left than Obama himself.
Well, the thing is that all of these initiatives have a tendency to be co-opted by factions.
Right.
Yeah,
You know,
and it's a sad reality that
yeah.
that extremes, the extremes on either side tend to be the ones that are most vocal and tend to be the ones that are most, for lack of a better word, active.
Yeah,
And that's been the problem the middle has had for a long time. You know?
Yeah, they're the biggest stakeholders. You know, and because for whatever reason, you know, I mean, because that's what they do. That's what they like to do. They like to get together and you know, listen to each other, you know, back up what their belief system is, you know, and you know, when you're talking about it for them, it's sort of like, you know, having dessert, you know, they get to have dessert all the time and they don't ever really do any hard work, you know. So, and it happens on both sides.
Yeah, and the thing is that what works is when you get opposite sides engaging with each other. Okay, when they're fighting independently, nothing gets solved.
Well, if they engage with a unity of purpose.
if they're actually willing to listen to one another.
Yeah.
Well, but you see, this is what's really cool about what we could do. Okay, in other words, if you can create a forum where, you know, people aren't shouting at each other, right? But where everybody gets to express their opinion and it happens in a way that doesn't build up a bunch of animosity, right? That's the challenge.
You mean like on Facebook?
like Facebook? Yeah. Well,
I read recently a little meme that unfortunately pretty much sums up today's political discourse. It focused on Facebook, but it said trying to have a political discussion or trying to persuade somebody to change their political views on Facebook is like having a chess match, is like playing chess with a pigeon. It doesn't matter how good you are. The reality is it's going to shit on the board and then strut around like it won. And that's basically Facebook politics.
Well, that's really true, because I mean a lot of what happens kind of in the discourse is, I'll use a slightly different analogy, Bob, but the chessboard is perfect. It's what happens is when people see their opinions, you know, being refuted in ways that are very logical, and they essentially see their whole argument going south, they have a tendency to tip over the board.
Yeah. That's exactly true. Yeah.
Yeah. And so is there an algorithmic way of not allowing that to happen? And maybe the anonymous identity is the most important thing. In other words,
that's part of it. You have to try to cycle back to before there were computers and the internet and all this wonderful stuff.
Right.
If you wanted to have a political discussion or argument or an issue came up, you had to go to some place physically. And you went, and the extremists on both sides went, and the middle people went. And the extremists got up and argued their points in the end, and the people in the middle kind of listened. But once you were there, you had no choice but to listen to all of the arguments. And while you're listening, you can formulate opinions on them and then decide what you liked and what you didn't. Part of the problem with Facebook is the fact that as soon as you throw something at me that I don't like, I block you.
Right.
All right. Add to that the Facebook filter. Well, no, it's not a matter of canceling your vote. I don't listen to you if I don't like what I hear.
Yeah.
All right. I can turn you off on the internet. I can't turn you off in a room.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Well, you know
So,
what's interesting, Bob?
and then Facebook reinforces it themselves, because the more times I like certain kinds of opinions, their engines throw more of that crap at me. So
right, exactly, exacerbating the problem. Let me, I've been reading. I'm reading a book. It's called The Founding Conservatives, and and one of the people I'm reading about right now is a guy named John Dickinson, who actually authored almost exclusively or much of the Articles of Confederation. So he was a participant early on, and you talk about the viciousness of the kind of the interactions between people in the ideas marketplace at that time.
Oh yeah.
It was really, really brutal, but here's the mechanism that I think is really applicable today. You had a lot of people who were writing in pseudonyms. In other words, they didn't, they were publishing in these pamphlets that were being distributed, and they were, the pamphlets would get these followings and so forth, and everybody would be, kind of speculating on who is this writing this, and the Federalist Papers were authored in the same anonymous way. So what I'm getting at here is, what if you created a forum where you could only be anonymous?
Well, you need three things. The anonymity is good because it allows you to at least voice your opinions and not worry about, outside, let's call it retribution for, although that hopefully is an extreme word. You need to also, though, make the forum appealing to more than one point of view. In other words, the enticement to go and participate needs to be there for a spectrum. And the third thing you need is you need to make sure that once people are in there, they have no choice but to listen. So you can't, you can't let somebody block somebody else in the forum. Either if you're in the room with them, you got to listen to them. Now, obviously, you can't make somebody read a post, but at least the post is there, and at least the post, So, if you're in the minority, you'll find that out because you'll notice that there's more posts that you don't want to read than there are posts that you do want to read. That'll at least make you think.
Right.
As soon as you have the ability, though, to say, "Well, I don't want to see a post from Ken anymore," then now you're not listening. Now you're not participating anymore.
Well, and here's perhaps a way, that these kinds of forums could operate. I mean, initially the participants would create the ground rules, and again, all anonymously.
Well, this idea of anonymously is, I'm not sure if I really know what anonymous means, because every statement we make is made with an implicit ownership identity. And to think that every statement someone makes is going to be wafted out into the air completely anonymously is sort of defeats the purpose of having a room, doesn't it?
The problem with anonymous is that if you look at like the scenario Slack, hardly anybody in there has a real identity, and most of the time they behave like assholes because nobody knows who they are. Okay, it doesn't help.
But I mean, Jim.
At the same time, being anonymous was shown by our research at NJIT to improve allowing anonymity was and pen names was shown to improve group decisions. So you're absolutely right, Ken. It does improve, but
So when you say adding it, does adding it imply requiring it?
Well, look, Gary, here's the thing. Anonymous doesn't mean that you don't have a strong, robust identity. Okay, and if you've looked into the free trust concept of organic identity and reputation. Okay, so what it means is that the part of the proven anonymous or anonymous identity that you bring to the forum has already been developed. In other words, the reputation of that identity has already been developed, right? I mean, I'm on the right track here, right, Jim?
I think of it this way. When it comes to when it comes to anonymity especially in a political forum kind of thing, you need to do two. And you've heard me say at least one of these before. All right, we need to do two things with the identity. We do not necessarily need to tell everybody in the room that you are Ken Williams and you live at such and such an address and here's your phone number, so forth. We do need to tell everybody though that this guy K123 fits whatever criteria were defined for eligibility to be in this group, whether or not that means lives in a certain zip code or whatever. You don't have to give your address, but at least if there's a zip code or a voting precinct requirement, you met it. All right. We don't have to tell you where they lived. We just have to tell you that they live in the area. And the other thing we need to guarantee is that there's only one copy of you in here. All right. And we need to guarantee that to make sure that you don't end up with 10,000 people in the room and 9,000 of them are bots of you, so that when you come up with your opinion, 9,000 people say yeah.
Yeah. Does that make it sort of clearer, Gary?
Yes, it may be my own confusion with how anonymous relates to more anonymous. To me seems rather off and on, whereas selected levels of information about the actor is really what we're going for. It's much more subtle than just the word anonymous.
Well, I think the key thing here is that as the way Bob explained it, I think is pretty good. If individual number 8345 who can be identified as a real person and not a bot, has proven themselves to be reliable based on a certain kind of criteria in other interaction groups, then they are then I guess the point is that they're reliable and they can interact within this forum in a constructive way. Does that make sense?
Yes, it's
so that's the kind of anonymous identity that we're talking about, and that's also one of the things, that's a key Divvy goal is to develop strong identity for those using the Divvy platform, because as our discussion has really illustrated, it's absolutely key for people to constructively interact with one another.
I agree. That is imperative.
Yeah, and you know, sort of just pivoting back to MaxForce, they are very, very interested in developing that type of identity for their purposes. Okay, so in other words, it's the bottom line here is that you know, you need to develop your reputation as being reliable. The more you do that, the more constructive you can be, the more valuable you can be for a larger group, and the less reliable you are, the more you have a tendency to be left out. You know, and that I mean, and that's really kind of the whole basis of free trust.
Quora is probably the best example of a system that allows anonymity, and it's very useful because famous people can be anonymous. You don't have to come out publicly with your opinion. You can say what you want to say. Of course, Quora knows your identity. They just changed their policy so that they won't know anymore. So I think that could be a bad move, because I think if when people understand that there's no way that they can find out who you are, well, they may behave badly. But that's an interesting experiment that they're performing, and I think Quora is probably one of the best models of a discursive discussion system that I've seen, and that's why I participate in Quora. It has not been, as effective as I would hope in getting good discourse on the fundamental issues that I promote. But this article here is a great example where I get to, where people who read the article, say, well, there's nothing special about Planck's constant, and they throw out everything I say because they don't believe there's anything special about it. And in a sense, they're right, because a unitary bit of information doesn't have any specific value. It's a unary quantity. Its value is one. It doesn't have units. So it gives me an opportunity to answer some of these issues that people have with my ideas. And, it's a pretty wide audience. I got 800 views, whatever. I had 5 people request me to answer questions, which may or may not be people I know. I got 4 more upvotes on my answer to what are some great examples of skillfully photoshopped images. Oh no, that's not mine. Jeez. But the other example, which I think is a great example, is the Google document. Okay, it's like somebody comes in to read this, and there's no authors are mentioned. Okay, so they're not. You have a collaborative document where the authors, of course, you can look at the history and see who made the changes, But you can also sign out and make an anonymous suggested change that's accepted. So, this supports anonymity very well and allows a presentation of stuff. The other thing that I wanted to mention was a PBS show I watched last night, and I can't remember the name of the artist, but it's this jazz piano player. He was hot, back from the times of Jerry Lee Lewis through today, I guess. But a famous guy. But he's confronting people with opposing views, and he's specifically targeting Ku Klux Klan members. And what he does is he gets to know them. He makes friends with them. And 23 Ku Klux Klan members, some of them very high up, have turned over their robes and hats to him. He has this collection of robes, Ku Klux Klan robes, that he's accumulated over the years. And a very interesting philosophy. It was a great show. But, it really shows how, the research has shown that bringing together opposing point of views works. And I think that, peer-to-peer is the way to do it. Okay, rather than having one faction who all is trying to support each other and not offend people in their own group, confronting each other, as opposed to starting at the bottom and having peer-to-peer confrontation. And it's the best way to make a decision, any decision. You start 2 by 2. We found that the highest collective intelligence comes if you break people into pairs first, let them come to a consensus, then bring pairs together, let them come to consensus. And
so, Jim, if I could just jump in terms of creating let's say, establishing an agreed upon process within a forum, one could say, okay, we're going to start by gathering, these 20 people together, and then we're going to get ourselves roughly, oriented as to, which end of the spectrum we're on, and then we're going to each, from the extremes of that spectrum, we're going to put 2 people together.
now, yeah.
And we're going to take that whole group of 20 individuals, and we're going to pair them up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're going to just, discuss where they're coming from, what it is, the subject. I mean, you got to keep it fairly narrow, probably. But then at some point, you bring, each pair comes back into the group, right? To
Yeah. Well,
I don't know, express some sort of an outcome of what they've done together.
yeah.
Their interaction.
I developed a scenario, very similar scenario back in the 80s on Eyes, which was, we had a problem when there was objective criteria of the quality of solution. And And, you know, we just took a group of arbitrary people and put an arbitrary pair together to start with. And that worked out very well. And of course, you know, we did a lot of different experiments, but that was, you know, that was one of the things that sort of like it was political. They didn't want to publish that the ideal group size was 2. And so they deny it. But I saw the data. I know it was true.
Well, you know, I mean, what you could do is you could have a, you know, essentially using a 1 to 10 approach. And again, this is where the anonymous identity comes in, being very, very important. Let's say you have, you know, issue A,
Yeah, well,
and you've got 20 people. Let me finish. And you've got 20 people, and you put up issue A, and you ask everyone to, you know, on a scale of 1 to 10, which is strongly disagree, strongly agree, each one of those 20 individuals scores where their opinion is. All right, and this is how you're able to then put those two, you know, the opposing together, and
right.
And it also solves the problem of, well, you've got 15 who are strongly in this direction, or you know, are you know, let's say left or right of sort of 5, right? And you can still put people together in a constructive way so that you don't have 2 people who absolutely agree being
Right.
put together.
This is a use case, you know, for the debate arena. Where we
Absolutely, you got it.
People come in to consider it. They give their opinion, and then we you know, we put them into private chat channels in Rocket Chat, 2 by 2.
Well, yeah. I mean, those are the kind of the tools that we have available now.
Right. I mean, we could do this tomorrow if somebody wanted to head it up. You know, it's the same thing that you coming back to. We get all these great ideas. If we don't have somebody to lead it, we're never going to do it. But,
well, and if there's no money, you're going to have a hard time doing that.
Yeah.
You know, or everything is going to be run by somebody with time on their hands.
Yeah. And, you know, like this is sort of, you know, a process that MaxForce could use. I guess
Yes.
we don't want them to think they have the intellectual property on it.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, the whole thing here is it's getting the ideology out of the process.
Yeah. Okay, well, is there anything else on MaxForce?
No, unless you want to, yeah.
Okay, any other reports?
Not right now. If you want to start open forum, I would be in favor of that, you know.
Okay. The Learn While You Earn, we covered. The co-cloud decentralization community process we covered. So there's no other agenda items. Open forum.
Yeah. So let's see. It says moderator closes the official business portion of the meeting. Zoom recording is turned off.
Okay. Does anybody want to say anything on the record before I turn it off?